Okay, so I'm so excited because I was just speaking with you, Elyse and Gina, about how I actually have a lot of, relationships with a lot of the guests in some way, shape, or form, know of their work or whatever. And you actually, Elise, reached out to me through a social media post, and you shared your voice and you shared your heart and your mission. And I said, we need to figure out how to get these two beautiful souls. And then you brought in Gina into the mix. And so, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yeah, so there's a lot that I would love to go through. So I'm going to just plant some seeds, and then I love to get some little introductions and then just see where it goes. But I would love to know about, let's talk a little bit about mystery school and what that is for people who don't even know what that is. And then also the sister wound and how that's really necessary right now in this big paradigm shift that we're all experiencing. And then Elyse, you shared a little bit of your own personal journey of your near-death experiences. So those are some seeds that I'm just going to plant. We'll find our way to them maybe. But let's just first introduce, whoever wants to go first, a little bit about who you are, where you are in the world, and whatever that means and what you're doing.
Sure, I'll kick it off.
Sure.
Thank you for having us. Those are some pretty epic scenes to play. So,
We may or may not get to all of that. We'll see.
yes, I personally am excited to see how things will unfold. So, I am Gina, and this is Elise, and we together have co-created Awake and Soulful, which, as you touched on, we like to call a modern day mystery school. We both have a deep, deep heart for helping others really come home to themselves, whatever that means, right? That's like a journey that we're all being called to. And within that, within this desire to support others in coming all the way home to themselves, that sort of unfolds in a lot of different ways. And we work with a lot of movement inside of our containers, which is what this is all about. A lot of sound, energy exchange, energy alchemy. And as I'm saying all of that, I'm just hearing like, and that is like so less important to touch on, like the how, and more just the what. We both have a history in dance. We met as
Mhm.
professional dancers in Los
Hi,
Angeles.
I love
Yeah.
it.
And we've kind of weaved in and out. Well, we did weave in and out of each other's lives for a while and just kind of had all these beautiful little touch points where it really felt like spirit was just kind of guiding us on this journey of like, coming together to share space and to mirror each other and then kind of going off and doing our own thing and really coming home to ourselves and embodying ourselves and getting more whole in our own constitutions and then coming back and then going out. And it's like, even before we landed fully in our offerings together in Awakened Soulful, we were doing the dance of healing the sister wound with each other, through each other. And I know we'll kind of dig into that a little bit more, but that feels really important to share because one of the beautiful things and the funny things about us as co creators and just as beings is that it feels as though the medicine itself, like, moves through us, moves through the space, and then we sort of consciously, cognitively catch up to it. Like, oh, that's the thing that we've been doing. And then we can name it. So we are in a really sweet spot right now of starting to have a deeper capacity to even name what it is that we're doing. This is like not about us. And I know a lot of those of us that are sharing medicine and energy and healing work and somatics say that, and yet it's just the truth. So that was a very non-linear introduction. And yet that's how it wanted to unfold. I'm sure Elise has more to
Oh, actually, could I just reflect?
Yes, go.
Well, first of all, I just had chills the whole time you were speaking, Gina. Um, and in one of my favorite quotes, and you probably saw my sign off, is we're here to walk each other home, Ram Dass, because that I truly believe that as well. And I think that another conversation that I just would love to bring into what you just said of the not knowing, you have both having these touch points over time, and what was the period? Like how many years was this?
Wow, we probably met each other back. I mean, I moved to Los Angeles in 2006. So it was probably like way back in 2006 when we first like connected, met, created, danced. And then, those touch points where we were both opening again to our spiritual gifts. We both had experienced them as children,
Mhm.
kind of diminished, and then they were brought to light again. And so we were practicing on each other and doing cards and Reiki and just like offering that exchange as we were both like learning and reopening. Um, and then we both became mothers together. And so it's just been these like, yeah, these touch points and really the evolution of the woman, the evolution of life kind of as we know it in these bodies, in these human forms. And yeah, together as Awake Soulful, 2019 is when our first birthing retreat in Bali really was the formation of that. So that's kind of a timeline for you.
Mm, yeah. Well, I have a question, but I'm going to hold it because I want to get your side of the introduction more, Elise.
I love it. I love it. I just want to say thank you again for this conversation. These conversations are so needed. And I have such a giddy energy right now, like this bliss, this life, this aliveness. We have so forgotten and so been disconnected from this plug of pleasure and bliss. And part of the mystery school conversation really is remembering those deep wisdoms, recalling these DNA codes, these light codes, whatever we want to call them, these deep rememberings of woven connection that light us up, that bring life to our being, where we feel supported, and that we can transmute the densities. And it's not about not living in the densities. We've actually, Gina and I both have walked a lot of darkness, and that has provided the answers for that guided next step. And but again, the reminder that we were birthed through this womb, we were birthed through the darkness. And so I believe in the container of Awakened Soulful and the vessels that Gina and I are. It's this beautiful space where we really can guide people, witness women in both the mystical and the mundane, and really bridging this thing we call life and all these different like quantum aspects of it. And again, a lot of like flowery language here, but the thing about it is, for us anyway, it's the feeling, right? It's the feeling. Again, the embodiment conversation, the somatic conversation, dropping it into the body to really have people live alive, to live awake, to live connected, to be with each other in full witnessing. And I cannot thank Gina enough for going on this journey together. And, for all of us who are here now connecting and celebrating. So as you can see, I don't know if you guys are going to see the video or not, but when I get excited, my chest gets red and fiery and all the blotches. So when that's here, it's good. It's good juice.
the juice.
Oh my gosh, I do see it. That's funny because I usually turn bright red, like my face turns bright red too when I get like amped up. So I'm feeling calmer today. I think because I'm so cold in my space, but I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. I have already lots of questions. So one of the things that I just want to acknowledge this beautiful relationship that you both have of these moments where it sounds like you probably didn't talk for a long period of time and then you came back and it was like, oh wait, I'm doing that too. I'm doing that too. And I have had a couple of those relationships too, and they're just so special. So, but it sounds like, and kind of going back to what you said earlier, Gina, of not really knowing why you're doing it, but you're just knowing that you have to do this thing. And especially like when we're talking around leadership today, is especially when, because I have been really wrestling with this, is I've been collecting all of these things, like it sounds like you all have been doing too, all these different tools for your toolbox. And that sometimes, and doing things too, like, right, like for me, I wrote a book last year, and I'm like, why am I working with the military in this way? And it's like, oh, okay, I see all of these dots and now they're connecting. But as a leader of a movement that you both are doing through Awake Soulful, and not fully knowing this yourself, like you just have this drive, there's this pull telling you this has to happen and this is what we need to do, but we don't know quite why, what yet. I'd love to explore that with you both, of how do you do that for yourselves to just truly trust the mystery, because you teach the mysticism, the mystery of that, but then also to say, okay, here are people that are, I don't love the word following, but that are studying with you and being with you. And how do you create that like confidence if you're not quite sure yourself what it is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sure we both have a lot on this. So, okay. What is present right now
Mhm.
is the notion of leadership itself, I feel, and I can probably speak for both of us, is really shifting. And we are coming into this new paradigm where, these kind of hierarchies are no longer going to serve and support anybody. We're moving into what we know to be ancient wisdom and ancient truth, where the leadership itself is a co-creation between multiple beings and multiple energies. And I feel that what has made us, what I'm going to say, successful, whether we, name success in one way or another, has been our willingness, both individually and together, to actually hold an energy inside of ourselves that is like, I will gladly guide and support and nurture and nourish and teach you to the beings that are journeying with us.
Mhm.
And I'm still a student.
Mhm.
I'm still learning. We've been talking a lot lately about like one of our kind of pillars inside of our business is human first,
Mhm.
and really cultivating these environments where we first are like, I am willing to be all the way who I am, both the beautiful, brilliant, wise, all knowing, epic one, and the one that is totally unsure, that is insecure, that still doesn't know, that is still a student. And yeah, I just really feel like that's the sauce. It's like less about what we're actually doing
Mhm.
as leaders and more about this like energy that we're holding, because we've noticed also then it gives permission for those that are journeying with us, and we work predominantly with women.
Mhm.
It gives them permission to go like, "Oh, I can share my gifts. I can share my medicine. I can dig in and dive in and really be in my fullness. And I don't have to be perfect." Because look at these women who I'm like receiving so much through. Like they are far from perfect. So for me, that's what it's been all about.
Yeah, that open transparency. I love that. And that humbleness. I love that. How about you, Elise?
Yeah, I think, very similarly, but maybe just spoken a bit differently, is the willingness to go to the edge, the willingness to look at all aspects of self. We really bring that teaching into a lot of our work. Exactly what Gina just said, like the the beautiful, delicious, and the like ugly cry days.
Mhm.
And that on those ugly cry days, you don't have to hide away. I don't have to hide away. Gina doesn't have to hide away. that we actually offer it as another way. And we have chosen in as a vessel of that truth, as a vessel of divinity, to say, okay, like we're here to be a channel through it all. And it really does help that bridging, like I talked about before, the mystical and the mundane, is that we are all parts. And while I think when this ascension process began, a lot of people had, and not in a bad or wrong way, no judgment, but there was this thought of like, we're sending out, like we're going out, when in all actuality, we are coming into our physical bodies. So that reconnect, there is a feeling there, and the feeling must be felt for that ascension to take place. And so I really do believe it's our willingness to go to the darkness. It's our willingness to feel the pain. And trust me, we have felt the pain, the willingness to continue to chisel away at our own selves so that we are present with what's occurring, not only in ourselves, but then it's that vision of what our world is really experiencing at a quantum kind of space, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does make sense. At least to me, it does. I receive that. I think it's time to dig into the sister wound. Like, can you explain what the sister wound is and why it's so important right now and wherever
Yeah.
else you want to go? Yeah,
Again, I know Gina and I will have like different aspects of
that's
this.
beautiful.
But I think, if we just kind of take it into, let's just talk, um, gosh, there's so many aspects where we as women have been wounded. There are so many different stories of history and so many different timelines where the women's power was silenced, and where the womb no longer had a voice, and where uh, we began to question who we be, and we began to get delivered information on how we should act, feel, think, show up in the world. So that's kind of one aspect, right? When we look at like how women have been treated and what we were made to think. And then you bring in this aspect where, we used to be in village, we used to be in community and care for each other's children and have this aspect. And so when all of this kind of dominating energy came in to separate us, we then began to compete against other women, to fight for the voice, and think that we have to um, even be separate within that woman's voice. And so that separation may have shown up like bullying in school. It may have shown up where maybe you were made fun of when you started your moon cycle. Maybe in the corporate world as a leader, there was no space but for one woman, and so you had to fight your way there. So there's all of these levels and all of these aspects. And then you can go into mysticism of gods and goddesses and where their place was. And so now it is this remembering that actually when women come together, we activate a web of energy and power and beauty and creation that is a force so beautiful, it brings you to your knees in tears. And that is the remembering. So while, yes, it is the sisterhood, it's self within the sisterhood as well. And it's so beautiful. It might be the mama wound. It might be the wound from, like I said, the competition wounds. It may be the self-love wound that we get to remember to acknowledge ourselves so that we can be an acknowledgement of other women in this world. There are so many aspects. And I know Gina has juice to share on this too.
Dig in.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I really feel like you touched on a lot of it. And, it's interesting because we want to, as humans with psyches, like really name, really identify, really like, put words to a specific energy so that we can then, like, kind of unpack it and make sense of it. And we can do that, and we have named this thing within our experience the sister wound, and it is something that, you know, many beings can have recognition of. And when I listen to Elyse, I just kind of hear the space between, right? It's like we can call it a sister wound, and that, to me, if we just like kind of strip away all the extra, the sister wound is that space inside of you where you feel afraid to be seen within a relationship with another woman. And so that is is where we're really feeling called to dive in. And interestingly enough, without knowing it, we recognize now that this is what's been happening inside of our community all along. First with us, and then rippling out this field of possibility where women can show up and go like, oh, I don't. And a lot of our women that have come into our retreats and our spaces have said like, oh, I don't feel scared right now.
Mm.
I don't feel shame that I'm crying. I don't feel afraid to tell you that I have this, story, or that I did this thing that I've been feeling guilt and hiding away forever. It's like something inside of the space, something like bigger than us came into our relationship, came into our community and said like, this is what we're looking at. And like what Elyse touched on, you know, we truly do believe, and we can say this for any human, right? Any human connecting, whether it's a man and a woman, someone who is non binary, and whatever, right? Like human connection creates such potential, such beauty, and such like possibility for healing and for newness. And, we just have been kind of lacking that culturally for a really, really long time. And we also recognize that there really is something specifically about females connecting heart to heart, womb to womb, eye to eye, voice to voice, that just has so, so, so much grace, is the word I want to say. Like, it's just the medicine is so profound. I mean, if we do nothing else but just like get together with another woman and cultivate a space where we feel safe to just like look each other in the eye for 2 minutes, like that itself, at least in my experience, and I know often in Elise's, can do more than like years of talk therapy, It's just like we were designed this way. We were designed to like connect with each other and hold each other and see each other, and to, like really relate and co-create and take care. And so, yeah, we're just like super thrilled that this is how things have been unfolding.
Mhm. Okay, so there was like some images that were coming through when I was listening to both of you, and I don't know if you know the root word. I just learned it recently of the root word of compete. It isn't what we think it to be. It actually is. Now I have to paraphrase because I don't remember literally, but it's essentially to be together, to uplift each other. But somewhere where the story that you were just sharing, there was this divide. So I love looking at words and seeing how they've changed over time, and how it sounds like what we're doing right now. And even in this conversation, is we're reclaiming some words back. And that's what it feels like we're doing with the healing the sister wound, is bringing that idea of competition, not to butt heads and divide, but actually to be together again and to co-create again, which is so powerful. And to go with that thread, when you were just speaking, Gina, of like being in that, like what got in that space in between. Side note, my podcast is called The Space in Between, because I live in that space, that liminal space. But there's something with the work that the three of us are doing with the embodiment work, I don't know if you know this, what one of my teachers who's on the summit, his name's Alexander John Shaya. He teaches, his first language is actually Aramaic. And he shares that there are only 2,000 words in the Aramaic language, which is the language that the Bible was originally written in. And he says the way that they're interpreted is your breath, how you breathe it, and your posture. Isn't it amazing? Us being dancers, I felt like we needed to know
so
that.
romantic and beautiful, and like the essence, right? It's like, let's
Yeah.
breathe the essence of life and connection back into each other.
Yeah. And that's what I feel you are all doing in this space of, Awake and Soulful, is that you are what you were kind of saying, Gina, about this space, like what was that space in between that created the division? But you're actually like, when you were saying that, I was seeing like gold light coming through and reclaiming that space in a really powerful way. So just wanted to reflect that back and share. So, yeah. Yeah. So can we take a little bit of a turn to Elyse, because I'm really curious about your story of your near death experiences, and you can share whatever you want in terms of how much you want to go with that. But I'm really curious to know, the experiences that you had, and there was definitely it feels like there was a vision, there was a calling and telling you like this drive almost of what has become what you're doing in this world. Is that true? Do you mind sharing a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
of course, absolutely. Again, while it's a personal story, it really was such a beautiful catalyst for Awake and Soulful and where we are now. This near-death experience occurred a year ago. I will preface, this is a pregnancy loss story. So if anyone is, triggered by that, I just want to place that into the space. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny now. Of course, it wasn't funny then, but prior to this experience, and I will of course share what that experience was, but talking about these moments that happen and occur before knowing or before putting a name to it. About a couple months before the experience occurred, I was saying things in my vocabulary like, I'm not ready to leave this planet. I know, I kept telling my husband, I know something big is coming. There's a really big change. Life as I know it will not be the same. Like Gina and I were having conversations inside of our business, like women get to know, it gets to look different. It gets to feel different. The hustle, the things, reaching for support, calling in the community, all the things, right? And there were a number of other like dots that I connected after the fact, like, oh my gosh, my soul knew this was coming. So long story short, my husband and I got pregnant based on the scans. We were told we were having a miscarriage. We're moving through what seemed to be like a miscarriage. It just kind of kept lingering though, and we weren't really sure what was happening. And when I got some blood work, it was still showing a pregnancy. So long story short, there was an ectopic pregnancy that ended up rupturing at 20 weeks. And so inside of that, I lost about 85% of my blood. Lost a fallopian tube because of where it was placed in my uterus. Normally an ectopic is in your fallopian tube. It actually had made its way into the uterus, just not down where a healthy gestation would occur. It was actually my uterus that ruptured. And so there was a part of my uterus that also left in that surgery. But through that process, of course, it was a ton of grief. It was a ton of loss, loss of blood, loss of body parts, loss of a child. I walked through the tunnel of light with different vignettes coming forward of different pieces of my life. where I was in the wrong or where I needed to reassess, and then also some beautiful moments as well. But coming back from that, I was under anesthesia for about 36 hours. Life was so different, it was like the same, but so different. It was like, oh, this is what spirit meant by life's going to be really different. There was an opportunity for me to dig deeper into womb space healing, an opportunity to dig deeper into calling my community forward. And our Awake Soulful community showed up big time for me in that space and time. It literally was like real time practice of what the village looks like, even if you're not in the physical location. We have so many beautiful souls all around the world that are, a part of the community and continue to become a part of the community. But it was so interesting because I was going back and forth between the suckiness of the physical reality, right? Of like this 3D form, my body hurts. I had a lot of brain fog problems because of the, intensity of nutrition, depletion, basically. But I was going back and forth between, wow, like, why did God save me? Like, why am I still here? Why didn't I just leave? And then the other aspect of myself that was like, holy shit, of course I'm here. I was saying, I'm not ready to leave this planet. There's something bigger for me here. And this quantum aspect that knew that this actually occurred for me. And so it was such a weird space to like ping pong between this like deep, deep agony and this beautiful, beautiful bliss. And another concept that we bring into our teachings is that, that as above, so below, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, everything coexists in the same space. And what if we can name it or be aware of what's coexisting, that we actually have the power to alchemize it. And so, of course, in that space, in that time, there was about 6 months where I just really couldn't take on a lot of work. Gina really stepped up in her space to really hold. We had a retreat that was planned that I couldn't arrive at, 3 weeks after my surgery. And so Gina stepped up, our community stepped up to support in different ways. And then, through that experience really was an opportunity for Gina and I to look at what is the rebirth of our business as well. And there was a lot of recovery, a lot of taking baby steps, a lot of surrendering to that nothingness. What am I doing? I'm not doing anything. I can't work with clients today. Don't really feel like going on a bike ride. I'm just going to lay here in bed and it gets to be okay. And that real hard look at self, and that real hard look at a deeper faith, a real hard look at what I've chosen and call it in as, as a vessel. And then, from that space, went on a journey to Egypt and deepened in the mystery, deepened in the womb, deepened in that experience, while Gina was deepening in that experience, holding space in a lot of ways. And she ended up going through her own death and rebirth cycle with multiple very close family members crossing over to the other side. And so while my recovery was on the uptick, she really took a dive into the darkness and into cultivating this space of acceptance, this space of grace, this space of ushering her loved ones to the other side and opening that vessel. And so between the two of us last year, we were like, oh, wow, now we are ready for this rebirth. And that's really where the naming of the Rewilding Sisterhood and reclaiming this sisterhood really came in. Is like, wow, what happens when we really dive to the depths and really surrender to calling in the village? That was a lot. I get that.
First of all, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. And yeah, I'm holding that experience in my heart for you. And I can totally see like the foreshadowing, not just of what you were saying of you were calling in and saying, yes, I want to stay here, because there might be an opportunity to ask that question later on. But even just the work that you were doing, you were laying down that foundation for years when you first met in 2006, and probably years and years prior to that, right? And it's just so beautiful. And kind of the reason why I was curious to learn about that a little bit more, especially for people listening, is because I think that sometimes when we're having, what you really had was like a deeper spiritual awakening, both of you. And sometimes when we have those experiences, it can be very disorienting and unsettling. But there's this pull of showing up and doing something. And, you honored that time to recover, but also knew that there was something bigger than yourself that was driving you forward. And for people who are maybe dealing with that right now, having their dark night of the soul and going deep into it and kind of asking those questions that you asked too, of why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Maybe, having a little bit of their own shame, guilt story, or whatever it is that's spiraling them down, to say, okay, there's something bigger going on, and to just continue to show up and trust. And so I'm grateful that you shared that, and hopefully that's some inspiration for somebody out there who needs that right now. And yeah, Gina, I'd love to hear your side of that experience too, if you want to.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, there's a lot, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of layers to all of it, and it just feels like even before Elise's like physical near-death experience, I'll just speak to myself personally. I have been in such deep cycles of death and rebirth in my own life in various ways and forms. And it's been really, really intense. And what I will say is sort of like what Elyse touched on. This relationship, this container, and this, even our business itself, it's like the co-creation of Awaken Soulful. It has held so much energy and so much space. And so I know this is true for Elyse as well, and for myself inside of these big death rebirth cycles. I mean, like she shared, I had four super duper close family members, friends, all
Mm.
pass within like 5 weeks.
Wow.
One in particular, my partner's mom, I really was like a big part of the process of her end of life care. And like there, the day that she crossed over, playing her the singing bowl and, kind of singing her home. And even before that, my relationship, we had like a big collapse and a like temporary separation and a rebuild. And anyhow, through all of that, this us, Elise and I, our community, these sisterhoods, has like really offered me a safe space to land.
Mm.
Even if, and we're very good at this inside of our relationship and our community, even if Elise or another sister says to me like, "Hey, I've got my own stuff going on right now. I can't really hold a lot." Like even just knowing that they are there as like an embodiment of just love and connection, it has given me so much courage, because I too have journeyed through the like, what is this? Why am I here? Do I even want to be here? And I think many of us, and I suppose I can trigger warn this as well. Many of us, I feel like the last couple years more than ever, have had some form of what I'm going to just go ahead and name as suicidal ideation,
Mhm.
whether there's thoughts of actually acting on it or not. It's
Mm.
like we're collectively really looking at death and these physical bodies, and how, at least as we are right now in our evolution, all of them eventually will no longer be our soul's, vehicle to
Mm.
express. And it's just really, really important right now that all of us lean into some sort of environment, some sort of relationship or community where
Mhm.
we can have these experiences and know that like we're not alone. Whether, somebody else is having the same exact journey, like, I didn't have a physical near death experience, but I could still sit with Elyse and say like, I'm with you. Like you're not alone.
Yeah.
It made me really emotional. And so, on both sides of the spectrum in our relationship, I have just like really seen that process in its fullness. And it is like the most beautiful
Mm.
thing ever.
Wow. Thank you. Um, I feel like there's a rabbit hole I want to go into that you spoke in, but I'm like, oh, that might be like a 4-hour conversation. So I'm just gonna put it on the shelf for now, and maybe we can have another conversation. But I'm curious to know because you speak a lot about space, and I think that this is something we should talk about. Of first of all, for both of you, what is a safe, inclusive space for yourself, and how do you create that for your community and for each other?
Okay, she's pointing to me. Um, for me, it starts with me. I have noticed, at least speaking to my own experience, and then I'll like touch on how we be in community. But for me personally, step one is cultivating that safety within myself. Do I feel well enough right now? Do I feel resourced right now? Do I feel whole? Do I feel safe in my own body and in my own being? And for me, that's kind of a practice essentially every time I'm going out into the world, like outside of my home, it's like, and that might seem a little bit nutty, but that's just where I'm at. And if I don't feel in that space, I'm going to make a choice. I'm either not going to go to the thing that I'm was going to go to, or I'm going to take some time and some space to like really get with myself and like, resource and get strong and like feel really all the way in my body, so that there aren't, one of my mentors once said, I was at the time a little bit obsessed with this idea of like protecting my energy, right? And a lot of people get that way, obsessed.
Mhm.
I've got to protect my energy. All these people, they're just affecting me, whatever. And she said to me, hey, like, I'd love for you to just look at this in a different way. And what if you could just log all the way on to source, to creation, to goodness, and really like focus on, let me just get full and just keep doing that so that there aren't these like leaky spaces inside of you where things that you don't want could plug into. So
Mm.
that's my practice when going into environments. And then I'm looking at, for me, I suppose, I mean, I really haven't thought about this a lot lately, but it's like, does it feel, is whoever's holding the space or setting the space or kind of overseeing it, whether it's one person or a group, like, you know, do they have the intention of helping people feel safe, of helping people feel welcomed? Like, what is the intention of this space? And do they, have some sense of self enough that they can cultivate that space? So that's one thing. And then and just on that, I feel like for us, um, it's funny because as I'm like asking the question internally, I'm kind of giggling because while there's a lot of intention that goes into all of the spaces we set, I mean, there's prayers and there's altars built, and there's just like our overarching intention and kind of ethos of our relationship, of our business. It's kind of like we don't, it just kind of, it happens because we're, again, it's like what I touched on in the beginning, like, we're willing enough inside of ourselves to like see and experience and to welcome all of ourselves, even the stuff that doesn't feel great, that we can also do that for other people. It's kind of like at this point it doesn't, we're going to uh keep in our awareness that that we're not gonna invite in a person or an energy who can create unsafety for anybody else in the space. And at the same time, if there's something coming up and out for someone that feels uneasy or, you know, a little bit like, we have enough training and we have enough capacity to really hold that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a very roundabout answer. Lots of nonlinear stuff happening
No,
today.
you're good. You're good. Actually, you touched on all of the other questions I had in terms of the space, and then how do you center yourself, right? First, and then also like how do you deal with that emotional landscape with it, whether it's yours or someone else's, and what you just touched on at the end. So you just answered all three of my questions, and I don't have to ask you again.
Yay!
Boom, boom, boom. Oh, I love this question. I think honestly, I don't really have much to add from what Gina shared. I think everything that she shared is really so so it. What I do want to just offer is that, you know, I know Gina was sharing about the practice of like feeling safe within oneself first. Some of you may listen to this and be like, well, what if I don't feel that safety within myself? And how do I arrive at that to even know? Because we are also entering this space of just having real clarity and um, just being willing to look, feel, and choose, right? Look, feel, and choose where the spaces that you want to be. I think in general, and maybe I shouldn't generalize, but what I feel is true for me in this evolution of leadership is that it's not really based not just around the hierarchy, but also around this fear-based marketing and this fear-based movement that really it is anchoring into not just heart-centered, but like the human first conversation that we've had earlier in this. Like, let's be human. And can you see the human in the space that you're choosing into? And if you can see the human in someone, that may be a great thing. For me, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. It feels real. It feels like, oh, I'm not perfect, and it's okay because they're not perfect too. That same conversation we had earlier. And so if you are not feeling that safety or that presence, exactly what Gina was saying, just take that plug it into source, plug it into the earth, and know actually that the electricity is you, that you are the source, you are the space, you are the activator of those decisions. And no matter where your nervous system is living and breathing in each current moment, if you can say, oh yeah, I remember when the three of them were talking, they talked about just giving yourself space. We're so inundated with social media and stuff and materialism and and kiddos and laundry and all the things that we do in this weird earthly form, that offering yourself space with silence can pour into you, right? That gift of silence can offer you clarity. Like, oh, that's what I'm actually thinking. That's the thing that my body is feeling. Because so many times we're gathering our answers from external sources, that the space that we talk about comes in so many forms. In a container, right? In a container space that we're going to a women's circle or a sound bath or a healing or a retreat. But then there's like the internal space within us. Then there's the time space that we give ourselves. So possibly go to your journal today and just write a little bit about what types of space does source want to offer me? What types of space does my soul want to explore right now? And allow that to be a bit of creative and discovery time for yourself.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. We got to practice in there. I'm so grateful that you brought in this idea of the safety, because I think there's so many people out there that they don't even know what safety is. They have no gauge. And what you spoke about, the nervous system, and well, you were speaking about the fear-based marketing and everything. And that I think that that's really is because we are wired, our nervous system was originally wired to keep ourselves safe. So we're always in this state of fear, of looking at fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. And so that's really how our whole world is. And I think that we just tapped into this paradigm shift is that it's the rewiring of our nervous system to know that safety is the heartbeat, right? That's our breath. That's all the guarantee. That's really what this paradigm shift I feel is that we're moving from that place of what it used to be because we were, potentially dinner or fighting for our dinner back in the day. And now it's like, oh no, that's taken care of. Let's actually live in joy is our new normal. Parasympathetic nervous system is our new normal. So, yeah. Ooh, yes. What's that world going to look like?
So beautiful. I mean, this is like such a juicy conversation too. It's
I
another
know.
one that we could like spend 4 hours going into, right?
I
Like, where
know.
does safety live and how do we access this? And if there's trauma and
I
our
know.
nervous system, and is it our trauma speaking or is it our truth and all of that?
I know.
Um, and Elise just gave such a beautiful, little nugget of guidance there. Um, but I really feel like, this new earth we all speak of, we'll just call it that, I suppose, for now, the way forward, like you said, we are well resourced.
Mhm.
We are well nourished. We know what a baseline feels like, you
Mhm.
know. There was a time for me inside of my choreography career where I realized I did not know the difference between being tired and being relaxed because my nervous system was operating on overdrive for so long that I literally did not know, like, am I tired right now or am I just relaxed? I have no idea what the difference is. And so I feel like in this new paradigm, we'll know. We'll
Yeah.
like really know our bodies so well that we can feel how can I support my body right now, and that the conversation is like it's a co-creation between all aspects of self, right? The one that does not identify with the body whatsoever, that is eternal and infinite, and the body that we are inhabiting, that we're expressing through. And, it just really feels like there's no more, there's not going to be a need for escapism anymore.
Mm.
It also feels like the spiritual uh, circles and like modern day spirituality, a lot of it for a while has been
Yeah.
escapism, getting out of body, going after that other thing, out of body experience, whatever. And it's just very clear to us through our just life events
Mm.
that which we will call spirit is saying like, no, like the divine lives here.
Yes.
Yes, it's there too, but you're here in this body, in this dimension right now.
Mhm.
And I, divine source, am right here in your every single cell, every ligament, every tendon, every muscle, every blood vessel. It's
Gosh.
all right here. So, I think we could go on and on about what it will be like, but it feels like we will feel safe inside of our bodies,
Yeah.
inside of ourselves and our experiences here.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I could, my new sisters, we are, we just, I'm like, oh, I want to go down that little pathway and that little pathway, but I'm honoring your time and I would love to, is there anywhere you feel like we need to go right now as we sort of wrap up our talk? Is there somewhere that you're just like, oh, I just need to touch on this or dive in a little deeper on that? Is there anything else?
The thing that feels really present right now is just the reminder that you are fucking awesome. Like, you're so beautiful, you're so divine, They're so epic. And no matter where you as a listener right now are feeling, maybe there are some things that have come up that feel really uncomfortable. Maybe you're feeling really inspired. Like, we went a lot of places today and a lot of energy was moved. So celebrate where you're at, like drink some water, do some jumping jacks, move your body, because energy energy is potent in general, but right now in this quote unquote timeline that we're experiencing, like energy is moving very quickly. And so just remember, you're not alone. We're here for you. We're celebrating you. We're your cheerleaders, and you got this. Like, you really do. You got this.
Yes. How about you, Gina?
That feels like a beautiful button. Button to top it off. I mean, we're just really thrilled and honored to be here. It really does feel like this is a really sweet, really potent space for beings to just like remember who you are, remember that you are awesome and divine.
Fucking awesome, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yes, do we have a gift? Do we have a free gift? Do you want to touch on that, what that is and where people can find you?
Sure, we do indeed have a free gift. It is a 45-minute long quantum visualization journey to support the process in letting go. So, the other thing I'll touch on just really quickly with all this swirling energy, many of us are opening more, which is can be a beautiful thing, but it also can be very overwhelming because we're just receiving like download after download and thing and thing. And so this really does help to support you and just like very specifically, strategically, I'm hearing creating space to let something or many things go. It's something you can do multiple times. So it's not like a one off, that's it. Every time that you journey with it will be a different experience. So we're super jazzed to share that and hopefully welcome some more lovelies into the Rewilding Sisterhood membership as well. And I think that's it, right, Elyse?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram. That's usually where we're hanging out the most right now these days. At Awake and Soulful, pretty simple. Gina is at Gina Starbuck. I'm at _ awaken your soul. We kind of share on all the platforms. They all blend and create and play. And we've got practices and movements and tools, through reels and stuff that we share there. Or you can check us out at awakensoulful.com.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I'm just want to acknowledge you for your friendship that has really was the foundation that created this community that you both have been building. I know formally since 2019, but since really the first time you met, 2006. So thank you both for just being the sisters for each other so that you could hold that space for others in their own process of transformation. And also just acknowledging all of the shadows that you found your courage to step into so that you could be these beautiful leaders that you are now. And also just that you're in my life now because you're not getting rid of me.
We are happy to have
I was gonna say, we love it. We're so excited. It's time. It's time. And so beautiful to be here. Thank you again.
We're gonna dance together. We're gonna after press stop record. We're gonna talk about like how are we going to collaborate and move together. But anyways,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you.